Hello, everyone. My name is Lisa Chavez, and I have the honor of introducing Antoinette Sedillo Lopez this evening. As I do this, I want you to consider the backdrop of everything that's happening today, the attempts to destroy our public education system, the marginalization of women and our minorities, the destruction of our basic right to due process, and really the destruction of a government that has strived to be a source of support and help to the American people. Antoinette has spent her life fighting for these very causes. Antoinette is a Valencia County native, a hometown girl who grew up a few miles north of here in Los Chavez. She's a machete, and a real one. She didn't just marry a machete, she's one. People who live in Los Chavez proudly refer to themselves as a machete. You can talk to her about that later. Antoinette is the oldest child of Frank and Perla Sedillo. Perla's here this evening. Perla. She demonstrated high achievement and leadership qualities at a very early age. Antoinette graduated at the top of her class from Belen High School. She was a cheerleader and a Belen Junior Miss. Antoinette is a graduate of the University of New Mexico and of UCLA Law School. She was a law clerk for the United States Court of Appeals for the District of Columbia Circuit. Antoinette is a former University of New Mexico law professor where she taught for 27 years. She has served as a state senator since 2019, representing District 16. Antoinette was the executive director of Enlace Comunitario, an anti-domestic violence advocacy and service nonprofit organization. Here are maybe some things that you don't know about Antoinette. She's an artist. Just like her mother, Perla, she paints and she sculpts and she writes poetry. Antoinette has published books, articles, and her poems. Antoinette has spent her life in the service of others while at the same time raising her three beautiful children, Victor Francisco, Graciela Raquel, and Evelina Adel, with her husband, Victor. She also has a grandchild. I don't know if it's a granddaughter or a grandson.
Two of them.
Wow. So I read her old bio there. Please give an enthusiastic welcome to Antoinette Sedillo Lopez.
I can't tell you what it means to be here and what a special occasion it is. And Lisa, you almost made me cry with your introduction because you went deep into it. Yes, I was a junior miss from Belen, and my runner-up and my head cheerleader is Pam Cordova. And so I really care a lot about what happens in Valencia County, and it's so upsetting to me to see a county that was so rich and blue turn into this county that is red and mean. It's like this was a friendly kind of Mayberry, kind of sweet little town when I was growing up, and I don't feel that anymore when I walk around here. It's just different. And seeing the businesses that were here, the small businesses, little stores what was it? Tops and Bottoms. What was it? Yeah, Tops and Bottoms. Little boutique stores that people started here in Valencia County that were owned by people in Valencia County. Now there's a big old Walmart. And I have to say, one time in Walmart here, I wore a mask during COVID, right? The beginning of COVID, and a woman started yelling at me for wearing a mask. And I was like, this is not where I grew up. This Walmart doesn't feel like the place that I grew up. And so when I just jumped at this opportunity to speak to people in Valencia County, because I think Valencia County can get back to its roots, has a community that cares about each other, has a community that cares about the less fortunate, has a community that wants to see everybody thrive, has a community that wants to see everybody healthy. We can do that. We don't have to be a red county like it is now. And I know I live in Bernalillo County, but I feel a part of Valencia County. I thought that when I was preparing, I actually have a little speech, but when I was preparing, I was thinking about history. What was the great insight that the founding fathers had when they wrote the Declaration of Independence and wrote the Constitution, and then after the war? What was a great insight?
You might agree.
Men are created insight. Men? Yeah. Okay. What was another insight they had?
We the people.
We the people. That this was a government of the people, by the people, and for the people. And what did that mean? No more kings, right? No more kings. The great insight that these men had were that property owners, white male property owners, wouldn't be governed by kings anymore. And they wouldn't be taxed if they weren't at the table. That was their insight. Well, thank goodness that our country strove to form a more perfect union. So when I hear justices of the Supreme Court say they care deeply about what the founding fathers thought, I say, who cares what they thought? They were another time, another dimension. That was important. It was important that we would no longer be governed by kings. And I'm very, very glad they did it. But if you think about some of the ugly pieces of that, why did the South join with the North? They had such different cultures and they had such different backgrounds and ideas. Why did they join?
They got to keep slaves.
Exactly. England had outlawed slavery. And slaves that made it from the United States traveled with people from this brand new place, right? This little subset, this little colony of England, and showed up in the mother country in England. And if the slave escaped, there was a case, a very important case called the Somerset case, in which the slave from this little colony, not known as the United States, but this new English, these little colonies, England said, no, we don't have slavery here. And in English soil, we are not going to help this slave owner get this man back. So the southern states were afraid that if they remained a part of England, that those laws might be imposed on the colonies. So they joined with the northern states. Now that little bit of history is not talked about in our history books. You don't learn that in high school. You don't even learn that too much in college unless you go deep, really deep. And people have written dissertations about this. It sounds like you maybe either wrote one or read one or, yeah. Yeah, you're familiar. Well, and so that's a really interesting piece of history because it tells you that our union wasn't perfect when it started. It was 100 years later that we actually had to fight a civil war to get rid of slavery and to keep the union, right? And then it was 100 years later that, because yes, we got rid of slavery, but it was 100 years almost of Jim Crow. And it was in the 60s, right, when we finally start passing these civil rights laws. And if you think the arc of history, that's relatively recent, that we finally start giving rights to African Americans and to Hispanics that came into this country and to Asians that came into this country to do what? To work. We started giving rights to those people that we brought into this country to work and to work at the hardest jobs. That's what we did. And that was in the middle of the last century. What the hell is happening now? Right? Because we had the Civil Rights Act and we started, and then by the way, were women intended to be benefited by the Civil Rights Acts?
No.
No, they threw in sex to that statute because they thought it would kill it. They really thought it would kill it, and it didn't kill it. Because by then, the country had grown and developed. People were marching in the streets like Indivisible plans to march in the streets. and has been marching in the streets. People were demanding these changes in our country. Women, it took a long time for them to get the vote, but women were demanding more. They wanted equal pay. Have we achieved that? They wanted to control their bodies. We had a brief moment where we were able to achieve that, right? And now, thank goodness, and I see Senator, I will always call you Senator Michael Sanchez in the back. Thanks to Michael Sanchez's leadership in the Senate, New Mexico is different from many other states. We actually have the freedom to control our bodies in this state. Thank you, Michael. And Michael doesn't get a lot of credit for this because he did it in really kind of behind the scenes ways. He didn't set things up for hearing. He killed bills here and there. Because he was in a leadership position and he was able to do things in a very quiet way without having marches in the streets and all of these protests and in the face of a lot of pressure from the Catholic Church and from a lot of pressure, Michael did the right thing because I believe in the separation of church and state. I believe in that. It is okay for my church to tell me what I should do in certain circumstances. It's not okay for the government. And I strongly believe that. I'm very worried about this recent push for the IRS to allow the churches to endorse candidates. What happened to church and state? There is what is happening now, and I'm so glad you're all here, because it's almost any issue that you care about, you can find something that this administration is doing to it, and doing to it in a very bad way. A very bad way. I ran a domestic violence agency. Guess what's happening to the domestic violence fundings? Cut. They're trying to get rid of the Violence Against Women Act, which was a bipartisan act. I mean, I can't even tell you how frustrating it is to see the gains that we have made painstakingly. 2 steps forward, 1 step back. 3 steps forward, 2 steps back. Over the last few decades, erasing all of those gains. It's just really heartbreaking and so demoralizing. I actually ran for office and I wanted to honor, I was asked to honor John Lewis.
Yeah.
I ran for Congress, actually. That's how I got into politics. Trump was selected by the Electoral College and I was recruited to run for Congress. And I did. I ran for Congress in 2018 and it was a wonderful, wonderful experience, and one of the cool things was I got to attend the PCCC candidate training. That's a Progressive Congressional Caucus candidate training school. And one of the main speakers was John Lewis. And he got up and he spoke about what happened to him on that bloody Sunday and how he was beaten and how he thought he was going to die. And he talked to us about why he did it and how inspired he was by Martin Luther King and by the possibilities of nonviolent protest. And he talked about it to us about progressive values and how progressive values were carrying on the legacy of Martin Luther King. That's what he talked to us about. And then I didn't know this until I got to that candidate training. He talked about forgiving one of the men, I forgot the man's name, I think it was Elwin or some weird name like that. One of the men who beat him came to his office in Congress and apologized to him. He was a former leader of the Ku Klux Klan, and he saw the light. He got religion, he saw the light, and he decided he really needed to apologize to this man, and he apologized to him. And what I didn't know about that until that candidate training. And what I also didn't know is that John Lewis accepted his apology. And he accepted his apology. He appeared on Oprah, it turns out, all kinds of things. He talked about how important it was, because what John Lewis said was the heart of nonviolent resistance is reconciliation. Reconciliation and forgiveness. And so he was able to forgive the man who beat him up. I mean, he still had scars, and he showed us the scars he still bore from that beating on that bridge on that Bloody Sunday. And it's been 5 years since his passing. No, 1 year, I'm sorry. 1 year since his passing. When did he pass? What year? 5 years. It has been 5 years? I was like, the years passed by, so it's been 5 years. So he passed a year after I met him. He was such a vibrant man, such an incredibly vibrant man. And it's hard to run for Congress. It's fun, but it's hard. And that speech just made all the difference and powered me through it. I didn't win, and to tell you the truth is probably a blessing. Can you imagine being in Congress right now? Oh my God, the sacrifice. Half of the year you have to spend in that hellhole and deal with what's going on, and then the rest of the year you're here dealing with what's going on, and it's so overwhelming right now. Now luckily, and I'm very grateful for this. My predecessor actually took a position in state government, and I was appointed to his seat. And that's how I joined the Senate. That's how I became a senator. I was appointed. That wouldn't have happened if I hadn't run for Congress. So every time you run for office, it opens doors, possibilities reveal themselves. So I urge you, if you're thinking about running for office and standing up and stepping up, do it. Because even if you don't win, good comes out of it. People know that you care about, and you get to speak about what you care about, and people listen to you when you're running for Congress and when you're running for office. So do it. Well, that's what happened to me, is I've been in the state Senate, and I've been very, very grateful. Unfortunately, I didn't overlap with Michael Sanchez, with Senator Sanchez, President Pro Tem Sanchez. No, Majority Leader Sanchez, you're Majority Leader. Who was the President Pro Tem?
And we're still.
Okay. So you were like Peter Worth, lasting through them. Well, we never overlapped, so I didn't have the opportunity to work with him, but we have done some good things to the extent we can. I am very worried. I'm so grateful that one of your next protests is about immigration, because Trump is creating a Gestapo.
Yes.
Masked men, and they're all men, chasing people down a Walmart and tasering this individual, taking him away and not letting his family know where they took him to. I had the opportunity last week to go, I volunteer with this organization that provides legal services, and I don't take these cases because I'm not an immigration lawyer, but I do the intake. And so I volunteered with the organization. We went to Torrance County to do some intake and some screening and count the detainees. They didn't let us in. We had an appointment. We were there 15 minutes early. They had vetted us. They had our driver's license. They had everything. I was surprised I didn't have to give them my fingerprints, but they vetted us, and we couldn't get in. Why? The internet was down. Okay, it brought this multi-million-dollar company to its knees. How many multi-million-dollar companies do you know that wouldn't get the internet up within minutes, within at the most an hour, if it was so fundamental to your function? That internet was down all day. We never got to see a detainee.
No.
Suspicious.
The bathrooms at the front were locked. And because we decided to wait, we thought the internet was going to be up any minute, all day long. So the bathrooms were locked. So I went to the front and I said, I need the bathroom. What are you going to do? And they said, well, I'll check. So they went up the chain of command, decided that they would let us go use the bathroom in the administrative portion.
What?
So when I go in there, it's a strong smell of sewage.
Outbreaks.
And this is the bathroom in the administrative wing that smells like sewage. And I'm like, so I come back to the group and I say, I mean, I didn't see sewage anywhere, but it smelled really bad in the women's bathroom. So one of the men volunteers goes, and he comes back and he was in shock. There was sewage on the floor of the men's bathroom in the administrative area. We talked about, well, what the heck? This is a complaint we've had about this horrible place where they're keeping people who have committed no crimes. And they're keeping them in the same facility that they're keeping people who have committed crimes and a county jail. So there's a county jail, there's a facility for the marshals prisoners, and then there's detainees who in fact, we sat with a woman from New Jersey who came to visit her fiance who had lived in this country since he was 12. Why did they pick him up? He ran a stop sign.
Oh, still
And he was picked up. He had an attorney, and they were working there. She was shocked that he would be picked up. And I said, well, what about DACA? And she said, the attorney's working on that stuff. And I'm like, are they really picking up DACA people now if they run a stop sign? So even though we didn't get to go in, we learned a lot. And that facility should not be in New Mexico. And we've run that bill twice. And we're gonna run it again. And one of the big arguments is economic development in Torrance County. Well, I met the people that they were training there because they happened to leave when we left. So I was like, hey, where are you from? They were in white shirts, you could tell them, because everybody had their shirt for their role in the system, in the white shirt. And I said, where are you from? One of them said El Paso. Another one said Nigeria. Another one said that they were from Lubbock. We weren't even talking about people from other parts of New Mexico. We were talking about people from outside of New Mexico and international. We're importing people to Torrance County. How is that economic development? The people from El Paso aren't even going to have to pay taxes in this state if they're working in Torrance County temporarily, because they do these shifts and they're placed in Core Civic. So their home state is somewhere else, and Core Civic just puts them in these different other facilities. So we're going to come armed with what exactly is the economic development. They don't even, I could go on, but I'll save that for the debates on the bill.
No,
We also did a bill this last year I'm very proud of, was very proud to leave, and I think all of you should be very happy I did it, and that is protecting sensitive data. If you provide your sensitive data to the state is not going to share it with anyone else. I'm very worried about this Gestapo, the billions of dollars that are going to be spent over the next decades, if he has his way with what's in that budget, on policing people with masks on, not telling people. I mean, and I'm not even well, I had planned to talk about Operation Wetback, but I've already spoken too long. But deporting citizens was the heart of Operation Wetback in the 30s. So this idea that they're only going to detain individuals who don't have documentation of this country is something you should really think about. There have already been instances where people who are brown have been detained. So far, I haven't heard of people being detained longer than 3 months,
You know, the so on.
but what the heck? They should not, nobody should be detained in facilities like this with raw sewage and being treated like criminals. Nobody. And so I wanted to end with, I told you about where we've been history-wise, and I want to ask you, what are you going to do about it?
Resist.
Resist. Right. Resist. I am very, very happy that you're doing this. And I also want to say, are we going to go back? No. Are we going to go back? No. Are we going to go back? No. Thank you very much for listening to me.
I want to just leave you with a list of John Lewis quotes. And this is it. This is the question. The questions. If not us, then who? And if not now, then when? We need you. Thank you for coming here tonight.